The AI competition isn't slowing down. What are you doing to keep up? I've been working with all kinds of folks, and I can see firsthand how some are building massive advantages while others are floundering. Understanding these tools is key for survival, not just success. To help you get ahead of the pack today, I'm putting Claude 3 under the microscope to see how it compares to top competitors when it comes to sentiment analysis. In addition to giving you a deep dive into this exciting new tool, the sentiment analysis concepts covered in this video will be especially useful for marketers who are interested in getting X-ray vision for their customer emotions, leveraging AI to gain a nuanced understanding of how customers feel about their products, services, or brand. It'll also help marketers turn customer whispers into strategic thunder, helping them translate individual feedback into big picture insights that can fuel powerful marketing decisions. This goes beyond simplistic positive and negative readings, uncovering deeper emotions and reasons behind opinions that will inform marketing strategies, product improvements, and customer engagement efforts. This will also be very helpful for data analysts who are looking to interpret subjectivity and turn the roar of opinions into a symphony of insights, improving the ability to mine qualitative customer feedback. This will also help find patterns in large data sets, discovering the constellations hidden within a universe of data. These prompts will also help customer service professionals and act as a distress signal decoder, prioritizing urgent issues, identifying and escalating cases with strongly negative sentiments. It's also the key to unlocking customer hearts and minds and tailoring effective responses. These prompts will help customer service professionals understand the emotional drivers behind the feedback, improving every aspect of what they do. We're going to look at a wide range of prompts and strategies catering to different skill levels and use cases, but we're going to put a special focus on Anthropic's Claude 3 so we can gain some familiarity with this powerful new model and see how it stacks up against the other leading large language models such as ChatGPT and Google's Gemini. This video is packed with practical applications and examples. If you're new to the Blazing Zebra channel, I want to welcome you and thank you for joining me on my journey of helping marketers and entrepreneurs and basically anybody in the workforce learn how to use these powerful new AI tools. I've got a cheat sheet version of this video with all of the prompts and a lot of extra resources available to my Patreon supporters. There's a link in the description to that. I also have some coaching options and some other ways we can work together to help you gain an edge in this new world of generative AI. Okay, so Claude 3 is now out, and Claude has been one of the favorite large language models of a lot of the clients and folks that I work with, so I am very excited to see how it performs against ChatGPT and Google's Gemini, which are also very powerful large language models. It comes in 3 different types. The Opus is the most powerful version of this large language model. There's also the Sonnet, which is the medium level, and then the Haiku, which is sort of the lightweight, least expensive, possibly the fastest version of Claude 3. For all the tests today, we're going to be focusing on the Opus. So we're focusing on all of the state-of-the-art models here when it comes to ChatGPT as well as Google's Gemini. So many folks are out there claiming that Claude 3 outperforms these competitors. So we will see here in a minute how it does. I've been impressed with it. There'd be some interesting things, I can guarantee you that. Other folks note that there are some limitations with the current affairs knowledge. So the fact that its training database may not be as up to date as some of the others, especially when you consider that the others can now crawl the web pretty easily. Anthropic's Claude does not have that capability yet. That's not such a big deal for me because I think of these as reasoning models, not so much search engines. I think there's a lot of confusion out there where folks are thinking of these large language models, these AI tools, as search engines. But if you're looking to just search current, events, Google is still good for that. Perplexity AI is probably the best for that. But what I'm looking for when it comes to these is their level of intelligence, how they respond, and other factors than just what the weather is today or what sports teams won last night, that type of thing. Use a search engine for it. But these tools, maybe you want to gather up all the information and feed them into these different tools, as we'll kind of go through today, in order to see how they can think through specific problems once they're given all the information. Another note about Anthropic, it aligns with the effective altruism movement aiming for safe, beneficial AI development. So this is how they differentiate themselves from the other folks in the space. So let's test it out. We are going to look into sentiment analysis, and we're going to compare Claude 3 with Google's Gemini and OpenAI's GPT-4, the most advanced models across the board. I picked sentiment analysis because I haven't really done a video on it, and it is a major use case for these large language model tools. The basic use cases here are social media monitoring, brand monitoring, voice of the customer, customer service, and market research, but there are other things that you can use sentiment analysis for, such as competitor tracking. Look at what the folks are saying about your competitors. Maybe that can yield some advantages. Campaign evaluation, so looking into very specific campaigns that you've run, marketing campaigns, or maybe customer service initiatives to analyze the success or failure of those. Identifying various influencers out there by monitoring what folks are saying about them or to them. Looking at the voice of the employee for larger organizations that have employees out there talking about what it's like to work somewhere. This can be powerful to help build that company culture. Also, crisis management. So if there is a issue bubbling up, this is the type of thing that can help you learn about it very quickly. So buckle up. I spent quite some time researching this video. We're going to start with some basic lightweight use cases. We're going to get into some more immediate analysis, followed by some advanced prompts that look into how to interpret these comments and these reviews that you may be analyzing for not only what people are saying, but maybe for some of the things that they're not saying. From there, we're going to go a little bit further and think about some out-of-the-box ideas that were pretty fun that I came up with, and some additional resources of how you can automate and scale all of this. These resources include some ways to plug in these prompts into various spreadsheets, as well as APIs that you can plug into. Okay, so now hopping into the cheat sheet version of this video. This is where I'm going to be grabbing all the prompts from. This is available to my Patreon supporters. There's a link in the description to this. The first basic sentiment analysis prompt is: identify the overall sentiment for each customer support message in this data set. Provide a summary of the most common sentiments and a breakdown of the top issues causing negative sentiment. And here's the data we're going to be feeding in along with these prompts. This is 20 various restaurant reviews, all sorts of shades of rudeness, politeness, positive, negative, neutral. So this is also available in that cheat sheet as well if you're looking to test out some of these processes yourself. All right, so everybody's familiar with ChatGPT, GPT-4. Let's see how GPT-4 responds. You can see I'm copying that prompt in along with the test data, which are the 20 different restaurant reviews. I'm going to go ahead and push that into Gemini as well. And Claude as well. You can get to Claude by simply going to claude.ai. ChatGPT is analyzing, and in my tests, I've seen that ChatGPT takes quite a long time to respond to even this basic prompt, while I believe these others are going to be faster. You can see Gemini here has already responded. I'll go through this here in a second. Claude is almost done responding. GPT-4 still analyzing. So as far as speed goes, GPT-4 is lacking. Let's see how Gemini responded. Absolutely. Here's the sentiment analysis along with a summary of issues and a breakdown. So it's pulled together the positive ones, it's pulled together the neutral ones and categorized these, pulled together the negative, summary of most common sentiments, and then an analysis top issues causing a negative sentiment. See if ChatGPT is done. Oh, it just finished, and it is a shorter response. ChatGPT kind of breaks it down. You can see here price and portion. It mentions a few of the negative sentiments. This is interesting. Kind of points out some things that were not mentioned. Interesting, but very short, I guess mainly because it doesn't list out and separate all of them. Let's see what Claude did. Okay, so it went through and labeled them without giving you the, I think if it was labeling it, it would be helpful to get the comment along with it. So now you'd have to kind of go back and match, this to the test data to kind of understand what was going on there. Summary of the most common sentiments. So it is saying that the most common sentiments appear to be negative, and it's pulling out mixed sentiments and separating those from neutral, which is interesting, where there's only one where it's saying is fully neutral, and then there's a couple that are mixed. I think the other models would probably be lumping those all into neutral. Breakdown of top issues causing negative sentiment. So there is more here on the negative sentiment side than in the other models. Interesting here. If we're going best to worst, I might give Gemini the best. I've been having a lot of luck with Gemini. I use it quite a bit, so I'm going to give Gemini the award here for this first basic basic prompt. Claude definitely second place to ChatGPT here. I would say in third place for that basic prompt. All right, now for this next prompt, we're going to go a little bit deeper, not just positive and negative, but we're offering these different shades of gray: negative, slightly negative, neutral. So kind of 5 different degrees between positive and negative. Additionally, we're looking for the dominant emotion. So are they happy, angry, frustrated, sad? Look, getting a little more nuance to it. And then the aspect-based sentiment. So rating the sentiment toward the following features on a scale of very negative to very positive. So a much deeper look at the sentiments. Let's see what these tools came up with. All right, I'm going to drop that prompt along with our test data here into ChatGPT. And this time it has started answering right away, which is interesting. While that's going, let's put this into Gemini and Claude. Flipping back to ChatGPT, still responding. Gemini, I would say, is still much faster. The race is on. Wow, Gemini is very detailed. Looks like Claude is done. Gemini is done. ChatGPT still going. Let's dive deeper here into Gemini. Here's your breakdown of these product reviews, analyzing sentiment, emotions, and breakdown features individually. So it goes review by review. Overall is positive. Dominant emotion is joy. Aspect-based sentiment, filet mignon, +2. Red wine sauce, +2. I let it define its own aspect-based sentiment. You can, decide to steer it based on that prompt into specific aspects. Very cool. This is very helpful. I could see this being useful, pumping this into a data frame or pulling this into a spreadsheet where you can then start to qualify and understand on a deeper level the sentiments here. So Gemini response looks good. Let's look at ChatGPT. It's asking me to continue generating, so I'm gonna do that. So very slow, and it did not fully answer this in one go. While that's continuing to generate, let's take a look at Claude. So again, Claude is not reiterating the comment, which I think would be very helpful. Other than that, it is fairly close to Gemini, a little bit of a formatting issue here, but this would be something you could then pull into a data frame and analyze. Formatting looks a little funky. I think the Gemini formatting, very clear and easy to read, and this is a challenging prompt. There was a lot in there, and it's even going to get more challenging with the next prompt. So I think, again, I don't even know if I need to look at ChatGPT. It's just taken so long. Let's see. So ChatGPT is giving you kind of a summary of the comment, so not a little bit between Gemini and Claude. It's giving you sort of a label, I guess, of what that comment is, where this first comment was speaking about the filet mignon and the red wine sauce, and it is giving very similar to Gemini. The formatting is good. It looks like what's kind of cool here that it is sticking to the same 4. It has decided on 4 different aspect-based sentiments, and it is sticking to those rather than Gemini, which sort of jumping around and deciding what aspects are being spoken about in each comment. So I think that is helpful. So again, you can see this easily being ported over into a spreadsheet for some further analysis. I'm going to say Gemini wins this one again. I'd have to put Claude in last place for this one. This is just not great. Not a great response. ChatGPT, I would say, is second. So for this intermediate sentiment analysis, I'm going with Gemini again for number 1, ChatGPT for number 2, and Claude kind of a distant third in this test. So I'm not going to run this prompt sequence, but I have included it here for you to either take a screen grab of or again check out the cheat sheet. This might be a situation where a prompt sequence is more helpful than any single prompt. I personally have a lot more luck with these prompt sequences, so you might want to look into first running it through the basic sentiment, then classification, then further analysis, rather than trying to do that all in one prompt. If you've watched my other videos, this is a big theme for me. Don't try to force the LLM to do too much with one prompt, except for when you're creating videos where you're really trying to push them to the limit, as we're doing today. Here's a second example of a prompt sequence that might be helpful here. Analyze the sentiment and then focusing in on the top 2 issues identified. And now I'd like to move on to the third and most advanced interpretation of these sentiments, where we're really looking for potentially what has not been said in addition to what's been said. So this looks at things like irony. It looks at, are they, maybe overemphasizing something and being a little bit too positive, or are they really being a little bit too over the top negative? Maybe they've had a bad day. So getting under the hood of the psychology of the sentiments and gaining a little more insight that way. This is a massive prompt. This becomes now much more like the instructions that you would put into a custom GPT. If you've seen my other videos creating custom GPTs, this would be a good candidate for that. If you're interested in a video of creating a custom GPT for this, I can do that. Just let me know in the comments. So this prompt gives it the overall task. It tells it to read each sentiment carefully, determine emotional depth and nuances, assess exaggeration or restraint. So this is again getting underneath the core comment and more into the psychology of who dropped that comment in there to try to parse apart maybe they're over the top or they're having a bad day, etc. Considering underlying factors, provide a summary analysis, suggestions for a response, and this even gives an example to help steer the large language model in the right direction. Okay, so we're dropping all that in along with the test data, and let's see what happens. We know ChatGPT is going to take a second. We're going into Gemini. I might mention that while I was making this video, I started to get into a habit of just having all 3 of these large language models open and just doing everything through all 3 of them, because I've seen instances where some of them shine in various different situations. And for me, it's really still hard to know exactly where those situations are, but it's very easy to just copy and paste from one to the other and see which ones provide the best results. And then oftentimes I'll kind of Frankenstein them together. What's interesting here with Claude is that it shows up as a little document here when you copy and paste large prompts into it. So Anthropic's Claude is known to have one of the largest context windows out there. So that's why I was surprised that the results of the previous query were not as good as some of the others. Let's see what happens this time. Okay, so ChatGPT just did the first 5, which is understandable because one of the major limitations with these models is the amount that they return in their replies. I bet if we nudge it, we can get it to do the rest of them. Let's see. Gemini did the same. 5 here. So I'll come back and I will loop through these in a little more detail. I just kind of want to get a quick glance of what they did. Claude is still returning its response, but that's understandable. I put this in a little later than the others. All right, let's do a little deep dive here into ChatGPT while Claude is still responding. ChatGPT is giving us the full comment, which is nice because you want to kind of see what it's talking about. Basic sentiment is positive, identified emotions, satisfaction and pleasure, intensity, moderate to high, use of perfection and exquisitely, no real exaggeration, underlying factors, expectations were met. So this is really a deep dive into each one of these comments. So you can see the first and second prompts, the basic and the intermediate would work well with, pulling that data into spreadsheets. This one would be more useful into a deep dive understanding the specific nuances of the sentiments. So perhaps something you want to think about is taking a large set of different comments and finding the handful of them that are really representative of the various personas or the various sentiments. This is something I've done in the past. So you might take a large group of comments, of reviews, maybe it's in the hundreds, and prompt the large language model to figure out what are the major categories of those sentiments, and then what are just a couple of the, sentiments that represent those categories. That will help you find, some of the core sentiments that you can then run through a process like this, where you're going into a deep dive on each of the sentiments. That way you can kind of get the best of both worlds. Maybe running those large lists of prompts through, that beginner or intermediate prompt, and then finding a handful that represent various categories and running that through this prompt where you're understanding really the psychology of what's been written there. So So this is pretty cool. I especially like this exaggeration and restraint. This is something that is additional from the other prompts that we're not getting. I'd say ChatGPT did a pretty good job here. I'm going to ask it to continue to just see what happens. Okay, Gemini here. I've had better food from a gas station. This place is a complete ripoff. Pretty good. These look very similar. One thing that's interesting though is that this was the second of the sentiments. It seems to have missed the first one. So somehow it did not capture that first one. Let's see if it went in here. The first one was all about the filet mignon. It may have reordered them. I'm going to say please continue. See what it does. All right, while that's working, take a look at Claude. We've got the sentiment listed here: positive and negative, emotions, intensity, exaggeration. It picked up on slightly exaggerated, which was interesting. Underlying factors, summary. Number 2 here, pretty good. And what's better, it went through and it did all 20 at once. So pretty freaking cool here. I'm actually surprised. I would put Claude in the first position for this most advanced and difficult prompt, which included, the largest context window. This was the most information that we put into it, the most information that we looked to get out of it. I would say Claude did exceedingly well here in the most difficult of circumstances. That's very surprising given that the other two Claude did not perform quite as well. So what can you gain from this? That each large language model performs very differently under different circumstances. Even if you run the exact same prompt through, you're going to get different results. I know I'm a bit of a nerd, but I just fire up all 3 of these when I'm working on something really important, and I see which ones give me the best results. Let's take a quick peek through here. It looks like ChatGPT has continued with the next 5, and I'm pretty sure it would continue to yield those similar results as we get all the way through 20. And Gemini has done the same thing. So it would be a little more time consuming to crunch through those using Gemini and ChatGPT, where Claude did it all in one swoop. And I feel like did probably a better job of it. I mean, you can take a peek at these and be the judge. They're all fairly close in what they returned, but it is very impressive that it returned all 20. So when you're really pushing it to the maximum, it looks like Claude 3 is the winner here. And I would say Gemini is very, very good. I use Gemini quite a bit. ChatGPT, of course, I really like the custom GPTs and the ability to control it using that functionality. I also like their API platform, which is very, very helpful. And you could, scale some of this, I think, a little bit easier using OpenAI's API, which we'll get into that here just in a second briefly. But very impressed with Claude's response here and answering all 20 of these with, I would say, excellent thoughts. All right, so now moving from our core analysis into some out-of-the-box ideas and additional resources. Here are a handful of out-of-the-box prompts for sentiment analysis that you might want to play around with. This first one talks about creating a short story where a customer talks about their experience. The second one here is an analogy sentiment interpretation, and this talks about turning it into a weather condition in a fictional world. There's a sentiment journey here, which is very interesting, especially if you are doing this consistently. You can watch for patterns over time as sentiments change. You can add a date to these and see if there is any trends that start to emerge. There's some in here that talk about role playing, and you can just take a screen grab of this or pause the video. Or of course, if you want to support my channel, this is all in the cheat sheet as well. I thought this emoji one was interesting. Translate the sentiment of a given text into a sequence of emojis that capture the emotional tone. That could be cool. Sarcasm detector, that might be a piece that you want to add. Are these people being sarcastic? There's a lot here. Color palette, describing them as a various color palette. Role play. This is a big one, and one that I hope to make more videos on, where we can gather a bunch of information about your audience, your customers, and then speak to that persona directly. If you're thinking about rolling out a new offering or changing your pricing, etc., it would be great to have a knowledge base that is built around around, customer sentiment and other things that you know about your audience and your people that you serve, so that you can, test drive and discuss with the LLM and have it play the role of your customer. That's something I'm really excited to get into in the future. Some other tools I want to mention here: GPT for Sheets. This is a really powerful extension. I believe this is a Chrome extension, or it somehow plugs into your Google Workspace, and you can then add these prompts to different cells inside of a spreadsheet. So you might have the sentiments in one cell, and then you might add a prompt into another cell and connect it to your different APIs. This would be mainly for OpenAI's custom GPT, although Anthropic is rolling out an API as well, and Gemini has one as well. So this is another way that you can scale this. You can think about a process where maybe someone manually adds it, or somehow automatically these different reviews are added to the spreadsheet, and then they're automatically analyzed and manipulated that way. Very powerful for scaling sentiment analysis. The other place you might want to go is in here, platform.openai.assistants, training an assistant on some of the sentiment analysis prompts that we went through, and then plugging that in using the API into various solutions that you're already working on. If you're a developer, if you're a data analyst, you probably would be trending in this direction, and hopefully you can just get something out of the prompts, pulling those into an assistant, which you can then use the API access to analyze your different customer reviews. All right, there's a bunch more in the cheat sheet here. Going further, there are some online courses, tutorials, and guides in here. Let me know if there was anything that was confusing, or if there was anything you'd like me to dive deeper into. I get some of my best ideas from the comments, and of course, feel free to check out my Patreon, where I've got a cheat sheet related to every single video. You can get access to all of those immediately by joining my Patreon. I've got some coaching options. One is just a time each week, Tuesdays at 2 p.m. Eastern, where you can just jump on a call with me and ask me questions and network with other folks who are excited about AI. I've also got some one-on-one coaching in there, so check that out. And please, if you haven't already, subscribe, give me a like, and shoot me a comment. Let me know what you're thinking. I'll see you on the next video.
Make your dreams come true.